There is no dead among the living. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Matthew 5:23-24. It means that knowing that your brother and yourself are one because the Father is one, because of one life, and therefore the Father is one life. You are in that life, and that life is in you and in your brother. Therefore, if you have aught against your brother, you must have it also against God. Therefore, how can you pray to God if you have enmity in your heart? We have already begun to know that 90% of our mental life is under the surface. What we hear, see, etc., through the senses is absorbed into the mind. Then it is either accepted, rejected, or becomes rearranged with other impressions previously received. So you see, the mind is just a conglomeration of images that you receive through your senses. The senses are the instruments through which the vibrations of sound, light, and feeling, and so forth, enter into the mind. Now, what takes place there is that these vibrations of light or sound are interpreted in the mind. They are given color and form and so forth, and a picture is built up in the mind almost instantaneously. And this picture is formed in accordance with your memory cells and the things you have remembered and seen before. Therefore, there is a quick as lightning photographic operation going on in the mind in which produces the image and places it before the consciousness. The consciousness becomes aware of the image and gives it an apparent reality, but it is not a reality, it is just an image. Now, I want you to see this clearly because of the fact I was talking to a young chap today. I met him on the street. And I said, "What are you doing now?" He says, "I'm studying philosophy." I said, "What kind of philosophy are you studying?" So, of course, he tried to tell me what kind of philosophy he was studying. And after you finish that, where is that going to get you there? A lot of images, beliefs, ideas of other people. You read books and so forth, and you think you know something, but you don't know anything. And I said, "What's that stone there?" "It's a stone." I says, "Oh, that's nothing. Anybody knows it's a stone, but what is a stone? You can't tell me what that stone is." So you see, you don't know anything after all. You don't know what it is. You don't know what electricity is. You don't know what life is. And you don't know what that stone is. Now, what's the use of all your philosophy now to you? Unless you can discern what your thoughts are and where they're moving and so forth, and discern what's in your mind, you always get caught up in these things that you create in your mind. And what is in your mind? You only created yourself. You don't know anything, and besides, what good is it to you? The main thing is to realize the great truth, that you must know what's in your mind, what your mind is made up of. Then you will realize what is beyond that mind, and that is the only thing that's real. Everything is not real because it's in your mind. You've made it up in your mind. And a thing, a word, or an idea of a thing is not the thing itself. So he began to think. Says it's very deep. I said, "No, it's not deep at all. It's just sound common sense." So I said, "Are you going to study philosophy now?" So he says, "No, I don't think I will." Therefore, you see, there is a trouble. We find that knowledge, so-called knowledge, is leading us astray. It is quite easy to see, if you are wide awake, what the individual mind is made up of. The mind of most people is a conglomeration of ideas which become a fixed expression of the mind. Now, according to what your mind is made up of, so will you accept or reject. So you're just reacting automatically without understanding. An idea comes into your mind, you reject it once, and that's the end of it. You go along, another idea comes in, and you reject it at once. You do not understand. You see, unless you examine, consider, there is no such thing as understanding, unless you examine and consider. Therefore, you cannot understand in your mind at all unless you consider and examine any question whatsoever. If you follow a particular idea, if you follow a particular image, if you follow another, if you follow a particular belief, you're brought up in that belief, you're conditioned before you're born. Because immediately you're born, your mother and your father and your parents has to direct you along particular their belief. But there are other people doing the same thing. And all around the world there's people doing the same thing, and what have you? A conglomeration of beliefs and ideas that are in opposition to one another, and you call it truth. How ridiculous it is. Truth must be one whole. There can't be any division in truth. So therefore, if there is a division in truth, it's not truth. If there is a division at all, it cannot be truth. So it is necessary to see what the mind is made up of. A great deal of our mental makeup is hereditary. We follow tradition, a belief in religion, belief in death, hell, and the devil. We follow a pattern made for us, so we are imitators and not thinkers. We conform, we believe, we follow, we become mere mental robots without understanding. And when we see that, we will see how clearly and distinct it is too. When we begin to reason divinely, we reason divinely, but at the end of that reason must cease before reality is known. Because you cannot reason reality. Reality is beyond reason. But you can reason towards reality. You can reason towards the ultimate. You can reason towards the absolute. But reason must cease. And immediately divine reason ceases and the mind is quiet, there is reality expressing itself. Now, do you understand that? That is the truth of your being. Not becoming anything, but being now. If you are born into a European family, you will probably follow the Christian religion. Now, this religion is subdivided into many different dogmas, each claiming that theirs is the true path. So you generally follow the one your parents followed. You are conditioned before you are even born. Same applies to the Hindu, to the Mohammedan, to the Jew, and all the rest of the different nationalities. They're conditioned by their nationality, they're conditioned by their religion, they're conditioned by their belief. And how do you expect to have peace? Can you have peace in the world with such opposition, with such strife? It is utterly impossible. Can then the absolute or the great intelligence express itself through you if you are conditioned in that way? I told you the other night that only in the state of awareness is the foundation through which reality can function. And that state of awareness is to be aware every moment. Therefore, aware every moment you're alive and living. When that moment is past, it's a memory. It's dead. That is death. Death and life are in the same cup. But if you live, you will know death, what it is. But if you do not live, you'll fear death, because you do not know what it is. So our outlook is more or less the result of imitations, which we have inherited from past generations. So we're caught up in the confusion of our forefathers. We think we know, but we don't know. The conditions existing today are caused by the ignorance of yesterday, and the generations to come will follow in our footsteps and will inherit our mistakes. Unless we begin to think clearly for ourselves, we will perpetuate the ignorance and confusion of the past. So will the next generation do the same if our transformation does not take place now. When I talk to you, of course, you will know that I'm talking in words. My words will create a reaction in your mind, an intellectual reaction. And you will know it is true because you can reason. But it generally stays there. It doesn't bring action. Now, reaction can never bring action, and only action brings transformation. If it remains as an idea in your mind only, then there is no action. There is no transformation. But only through transformation of the individual is there peace, is there life, is there strength, is there health, is there abundance. The great thing is, how can we make the world a better place to live in? We can only do this by seeing the cause of our confusion today. We have a great deal of knowledge, but what we need is more wisdom. Unless we see that knowledge and wisdom are not the same, we will never progress. Knowledge, being experience and memory, can never bring wisdom into being. No matter how much knowledge you have, it will not bring wisdom into being. Wisdom is the power and the direction of how to use your knowledge. Without wisdom, you will use your knowledge wrongly and destroy the world. With wisdom, you will use your knowledge correctly for the benefit of all, because it is one all and there is nothing divided. If there is a section that desires to dominate another section, then that section is now preparing the instrument for their own destruction. If one nation tries to dominate another nation, it is the same. If one ideology will do the same, it is the same all the time. They are creating the destruction for themselves. The instrument of destruction is created in your domination. Immediately you begin to dominate a person or an individual, even in your own home, then the same principle is behind it. It is not an impossibility to have relationship if you have domination. Only in relationship is there peace and harmony, and that relationship is understood when you understand yourselves. When you understand your own thoughts, your emotions, your actions and reactions, then you will understand relationship. But without understanding yourself, you will never understand relationship, and you will live in isolation. Now, no one can live in isolation except in their mind. They isolate themselves because in reality there is no isolation, none whatsoever. And therefore we see that true relationship is the secret of happiness and the secret of success. So wisdom is from moment to moment, whereas knowledge can never be free from the past, from time. Wisdom is free from time. Knowledge is accumulation, which is binding. Wisdom is immediate and is free from accumulation and is not binding. So if you look into your own mind, you will see how your knowledge is binding you. If you see how your knowledge is binding you, you will free yourself and your mind will become free. Free because your mind must be pliable. Without a pliable mind, there is fixture. And with a fixture in the mind, then you're dead. It is death because it's memory. And you're giving expression only to memory and not to life. Life is in the immediate. And wisdom gives you that immediate expression because it is life. Therefore, wisdom is the true direction. Now, from moment to moment, and you will know that knowledge is of the past and of memory. Unless you have wisdom then to direct your knowledge in the true path, then you will find yourselves as we are today in chaos. The world today is in the brink of a catastrophe because of the fact we are using our knowledge without wisdom. Knowledge deals with facts. Wisdom is beyond facts. Wisdom is creative. Knowledge is created. So anything that is created is not creative. Knowledge is of the mind. Wisdom is of the spirit. Spirit is now. It is eternal. Knowledge is bit by bit. Wisdom frees us from the conditioning process of knowledge. Therefore, if we see how we are conditioned by knowledge, wisdom will free us from that conditioning. We will immediately see that knowledge itself and by itself is binding, but with wisdom and true direction, it is elevating. Knowledge cannot free us, nor will it free the generation to come. We should know now that knowledge cannot save us, only wisdom can. Unless we discern the difference between knowledge and wisdom, we will never realize the one life that is present everywhere. It is all wisdom and intelligence there is, and it is not divided. It is not isolating, while knowledge is. So therefore we see clearly, and if you can follow me in this divine reasoning, we will see how beautiful it is that wisdom frees us from all binding knowledge. The knowledge today is binding. It is isolating. But when we have wisdom, it frees us from that isolation and frees us from that binding process of knowledge. We begin to see then that there is something greater, an intelligence that is functioning through us, an intelligence that built the body and the brain and the nervous system for its own self-expression, an intelligence that built the brain and the mechanism to create the voice. And the Spirit alone has voice. Nothing else but the Spirit has voice. Is there any knowledge in the world that would create a voice? You can create the imitation of a voice. You can create, as it were, an imitation of the voice, or you could record a voice. But there is nothing but the Spirit that creates the voice, because it creates the mechanism for its own self-expression. And if it is, then we know that it is, that it has created this instrument for its own self-expression with the wisdom and the intelligence. Is it not then that we should allow this intelligence to manifest through us that is complete in itself? We must go beyond the isolating process of knowledge and enter into the expansion of wisdom, and there feel and know that there is an intelligence that is greater than knowledge, and it is now functioning in us moment to moment. But remember this, that you must be aware every moment, and you must be aware that this intelligence can function through you, and only from moment to moment does it so, because life is renewed every moment. The moment is past is but a memory, or you try to recapture that moment. But how can you recapture a moment that is memory? Is that life? Of course it's not. It's memory. It's an idea. It becomes an image in the mind. That living is moment to moment. It's entirely complete living. And living now, an expression of life. I don't have to think what I'm going to say to you. I don't have to wonder what I'm going to say to you. These words become expressed because the Spirit in itself and the intelligence is expressing itself through the instrument it created. So that you will understand also that this mighty intelligence can express itself through you too. Wisdom must lead, for knowledge can never be wise. Only wisdom is wise. Therefore wisdom is greater than knowledge. Wisdom is a realization of the source of all things. Thus we will maintain harmonious relations in all walks of life. If you knew then the source of all things, all beings, you would not harbor then enmity. Your belief wouldn't be an antagonism against another belief. You would only see what is in the individual's mind. You don't argue over the truth because you don't know the truth. You only argue over your belief, an idea of the truth, which is not the truth. And if you see then that you're arguing over the idea of the truth and not the truth, you will stop your stupid arguing and you'll stop your stupid enmity, and you will see how clear and distinct it is. That is wisdom. The great hindrance in life is holding to old fixed ideas which have long outlived their usefulness. As we begin to understand, we will discard all ideas that are isolating and destroying. We will discard the ideas of separate beliefs, of limited science, the belief in the power of man as a separate entity, the belief that God inflicts man with all kinds of disease, that God punishes man and there is a hell and a devil, and all the stupid contraptions built up in the ignorant mind. All these things must be discarded, because you will see they are but imitations and beliefs, ideas that you have accepted from others without consideration, without examination. Have we not held fast to the fixed ideas of the past and perpetuated the errors that burden us? Are we to pass this burden on to the next generation? We will do so unless we begin to think for ourselves now and not follow blind fools. Jesus was very clear when he said, the blind lead the blind and they all fall into the ditch. There was nothing more true than these words. And we see it just the same today. Any person who begins to think for themselves can see it clearly. Wrong thinking will never bring about right thinking. We have accepted the psychological junk that security is based upon the expansion of the self. This only separates man from man and limits his achievements. The psychological junk you hear everywhere is that you manifest. That God is with you because you can manifest this and manifest this. Look how I've done this and I've done that. You see, God is with me because I manifest this. And if you don't manifest it, there is frustration. You hide yourself. What is it? That's not truth. Nothing more than suggestion in the mind. One suggestion in opposition to another suggestion. That's all it is. And it's the suggestion that is dominant that will manifest. That's all it is. And then you claim that you are so-called the companion of God. So does the bishop say they're companion of God. So does the man that drops the bombs and kills thousands of people say that he is also companion of God. So does all the people who build up great ammunition for the destruction of mankind. They also say that God is a companion. And God is life and peace and harm and love. And we try to find love in destruction. We have not begun to think. But what I'm trying to do is to make you think. And when you begin to think, then you will find transformation will take place within yourself. And in that transformation, you will act. It will not be a mere reaction, but action. The world today is just on the brink of destruction. Are they going to go over the precipice, or is it possible to hold them in check? Great work is done in this small band of people. Little do you think how much this little band of people who really know and what happens in the spiritual world to bring about a better understanding. And only that ourselves being a unit in the whole, that unit is expressing itself in that whole, and it is affecting the whole and bringing the whole into its natural state of completeness. And in that way, we know that, sure, if we are steadfast, if we begin to realize the greatness and the power of the Spirit which is within us, which is whole and undivided, then we will influence the minds of others, not only around us, but you will realize that our thought is charged with wholeness and completeness, creates electromagnetic wave in the ether and magnetizes the ether throughout the whole world. Just as you broadcast a message through the radio, it is heard in every part of the world at the same time, because these electromagnetic waves have magnetized the ether and it is heard everywhere. So is the thought of man elevated to a state where his true understanding becomes a power indeed. And these electromagnetic waves magnetize the ether throughout the whole world and is waiting and expressing itself in the minds of others, because every individual is a receiver and a projector. Let us see then clearly and realize now that this is a center, just as the center in the Himalayas, that are bringing peace and health to the world through the same point. If we realize that we are also the same thing, so can we help in building this true structure so that man will live in peace and harmony. The ignorance of the people you can see at the present time. There is an election coming on. Just look at the ignorance of the people. The ignorance of them. Is it possible that they shall ever understand? Would it be possible to allow them to come into a meeting like this while I'm talking about these things? Of course not. They could not comprehend it. They are too conditioned. Their condition is so completely fixed upon them that they would not understand. That's why I do not allow the public into these lectures. All these lectures, that you know, are by invitation. And without an invitation, no one can get in. It's for these reasons that when you are as one and think as one, there is a power indeed. Wrong thinking will never bring about right thinking. We've accepted psychological junk that security is based upon the expansion of the self. This only separates man from man and limits his achievement. It makes us fearful of another, breaks down our health, and sends thousands into mental homes. It is for us to eradicate the error through understanding the cause. Then we can free ourselves and those who follow from the errors of the past. The universal mind is impersonal, undisturbed, fearless. It is love, intelligence, and wisdom. The universal mind is the only mind there is, and there can be no other, it being universal. To possess the qualities of the universal, we must discern what is hindering its expression in us. So the universal mind itself is the instrument of creation. It's an instrument in which creation takes place. It's the instrument which the consciousness itself is manifesting. And intelligence is that picturing what the consciousness is aware of. It is automatic in nature. That is why very often you have disturbance in your body. Now you fight that disturbance. You're going to create more disturbance by doing so. If you were quiet and peaceful and knew and understood, then you would know, and your consciousness would become aware of a divine nature, an intelligence that built the body. And in that quietness and peace of the mind, in the complete relaxation, you will find that the disturbance begins to cease. But if you struggle against it, you give it more power. And therefore, giving it more power, you cause it to continue. And when you understand these things, then you will see how clearly and distinctly God has created man for his own self-expression. He will cease to be led by fools who do not know. We are the receivers. The universal mind is the transmitter. When we understand this, we will see why silence gives us tremendous power. We can only realize the power of the silence when the silence is reached. An idea of the silence is not the silence. And you think that you have silence. You sit and you try and concentrate. Try to push everything out of your mind. You concentrate on an idea to the exclusion of everything else. That is not a mind that is silence, that's a mind that is contracted. Silence only comes when you have emptied your mind. When the mind is free from opposites. When the mind is free from conflict. And how can it be free from conflicts and opposites? By discerning what is in the mind. When the mind is then free and quiet, there is a silence. And in that silence is a power. Why? Because there is reality, the only power that is. It is not made up in your mind. Reality is not made up in your mind. An idea of silence is not the silence. A concentration on a particular point, on a particular subject or object is not the silence. That is contraction of the mind. Don't you know that the mind is the vehicle of God? Oh, the great and mighty truth. If you could only realize this tremendous thing. So great it is. It is beyond comprehension. It is alive and living every moment. But silence is not reached through dreaming, nor is it reached by concentration on an idea to the exclusion of all else. It comes into being through awareness of what is preventing the silence now. For only through awareness does the universal function. Practice is the thing that enables us to be proficient in the art of awareness, living and acting. In us, the Spirit of God is individualized, and we must seek the law of causation by ourselves. For by that we are the cause of all the effects we produce, hence the necessity of understanding the cause. Are we not conditioned by the past, by conformity, by desire for our advancement, by the subtle accumulation of power? And although we may be outwardly active, we are inwardly dead. It is the projection of the self. All the time it is the projection of the self. And what has happened throughout the world today by that so-called psychological junk that we hear everywhere, that is the expansion of the self. And the expansion of the self only doesn't matter about any other person as long as you get what you want. So it is. And what you want is a conflict. And what you want, you haven't got. Wisdom and power and love are joined together in that communion with souls. That communion with souls in which there is no isolation, in which there is no division. In that expression, then, is the life, is the power, is the wisdom. That is creativeness. Creativeness comes not through the mind of man by his own self-projection. Creativeness is the Spirit. It is God, the intelligence of the universe, that is creative and nothing else. And if your consciousness is freed from all conflict, if your consciousness is freed from all inhibitions, if your consciousness is freed from conflict, from isolation, then your consciousness will give expression to that consciousness within itself, which is the consciousness of God, the directing power behind the planets and the stars. But that consciousness must be free from conflict, from opposition. And it can only be freed by your own discernment of what is in the mind. Because if you are conditioned, you will be giving expression to your conditioning only, and not to that which is real. We seek continuity, so we are caught up in time. What is time anyhow? There is chronological time, and there is also another time, psychological process of continuity. The chronological time is a time we measure each day, which we'll see that is a time that we make through the movement of the sun and the earth. The earth revolves round the sun in 365 days. And the earth turns on its own axis once every 24 hours. It moves at the rate in its own movement at 1,000 miles an hour because it is 24,000 miles in circumference. It moves round the sun in 365 days, and we call that a year. So we see day and night comes when one part of the earth faces the sun and the other doesn't. But as the earth revolves round, it faces the sun, and that face then that faced the sun today will then be night in 12 hours' time. And the other part of the earth will face the sun, and that will be daytime. That is chronological time. We created it, but that is time we created. But there is no such thing as time in eternity. Then there is psychological time, psychological process of continuity. We want to continue. And in the very desire to continue, we create the process of time and the fear of not continuing. In the fear of not continuing, it is the fear of not continuing that we are afraid of. We want to, but we are afraid we will not continue, therefore we are afraid of death, because we do not know what death is. But I will show you what death and life is now, and you will see how clearly death and life is one and the same. There cannot be a dead particle in the whole living universe. What we believe to be death is but a change taking place. The atoms change and transform themselves according to the cosmic rays that are flowing from the sun. The cosmic ray is the cause of transformation not only of the minerals but of the vegetable tissue, of the animal tissue, and of man. There is a continual transformation taking place all the time. And death we call decay. And decay is but the transformation of atoms into another form. There cannot be a dead particle in the whole living universe. Take something that is dead, and you will see it is more alive than when it's dead than when it was living, as you call it. And when you seek at the very center of the thing, you will find everything as atoms and the earth transforming from one form into another. After all, what is it that continues? If we live from moment to moment, we will know death, for we die each moment, to live each moment. And knowing death, we shall know life, because the two are not very different. If we do not know how to live, we are afraid of death. But if we know how to live, there is no death. People say to me so often, "Doctor, you look younger this year than you did last year." Well, if that is the case, why is it so? Really, it is a matter of living from moment to moment. And I know perfectly clearly that that living is a conscious awareness of life itself. It is a conscious awareness of life and its activity from moment to moment. Therefore, in living from moment to moment, it is clear that the moment is past, is dead, and that is death. There is no such thing as death in the spirit. Spirit is life. There is nothing dead in life. How can life be dead when it's one whole and completeness? Most people who do not know how to live look upon death as a negation of life. Therefore, they're afraid of death. But if we understand what living is, we shall know death is the very process of living. The difficulty for us to die to all things that we have accumulated, die to yesterday, die to the moment that is past. We want to cling to the moment that is past. We want to cling to yesterday. We want to cling to our accumulation. How can there be any creativeness in yesterday? How can there be any creativeness in your accumulation? Is there only creativeness now at this moment? And moment to moment alone is creative, and nothing in the past is creative. It is but a memory. Surely you should understand that. It's not so difficult. It is only when we die from moment to moment to the things of yesterday and understand the whole significance of continuity that there is the unknown. That which continues can never know the unknown, for that which continues is the known. But if you die to the known, the unknown will reveal itself and has no continuity. For continuity means a beginning and an ending, but what is beyond time has no beginning and no ending. So if you live in continuity, you will begin and end. But if you move from moment to moment, there is a complete renewal, eternally living. That is the Spirit. That's what I have found. And you can find it too. It's not found in any books. It's not found through philosophy, because philosophy is but reactions in the mind from one idea to another. It is not through religion, because religion is a form of dogma. Religion is an imitation, which you can find only for yourself when you discern your own thoughts and emotions and what it means. Then there comes a time when your mind is silent, when the mind is free and complete, free from all opposition, free from all conflict, and in that silence, there is the moment. One moment renewing itself after another continues. The past is gone. It is not creative. Only now is the creativeness. That is how I live. And that's how you must live also, to be free. And in that freedom comes reality. That is the unknown. Most people live only in the known. Therefore, yesterday and tomorrow become more important than the ever-present. But the ever-present is the eternal. Therefore, we must die to the known to realize the unknown. It is the known that wants continuity. The moment that is past must come to an end before the renewal takes place. You understand that? What a wonderful thing it is. That moment has come to an end. Past. No significance. Think then how your mind has been troubled with the things of the past. Think how your mind has been caught up in memory, because the memory is always influencing the present. But if your memory is always influencing the living moment, you cannot live in that moment, because you're living in the past. But if you live in this moment, then the past is dead. Your memories are but what is of the past. It is of no value to the living present. If your memories are good or bad, they are just the same. If your memories are pleasant and unpleasant, they are both made up within yourself. They are both come from the same source, from your own reaction. But the ever-present is eternal, the unknown, giving expression to itself in all its wholeness, and the very wholeness of reality is expressing itself now. That is life, living, in which there is no death. Therefore, know how to live, then you will know what death is, that there is no fear of death. It is the dying to the known that reveals the unknown. So death and life are in the same cup. Some say that they have overcome death, but surely everything that has to be overcome must be overcome again and again. When you conquer your enemy, you have to conquer him again and again. That's why wars continue. The moment you vanquish one, there is another to be vanquished. So that which is overcome can never be understood. Overcoming is merely a form of suppression. And that which is suppressed, whether it is internal or external, can never be understood. The overcoming of fear is merely the postponing of that fear. So it is with the fear of death. So you postpone the fear of death till the end, and you will say, at the end I will know how ignorant it is. That is the people, that's your religion. But did Christ say that? He says, I, the Father, are one, I am life. He found it, and you can find it too. As I have found it, you shall find it. And in that finding of it for yourself gives you the wisdom of it and the understanding. Then there is love, there is peace, because that is, in the deepest part of your soul, the livingness of the Christ is there. So we try all the tricks of the mind to hypnotize the mind. If we look at this closely, we will see that they are but ways of the self. So we pray in the hope that we shall get a place in heaven. This is merely a process of thinking. So we fear the thought of death. Fear exists only in relation to something. We are afraid of not becoming. We are afraid of the unknown, of death. Can such a fear be overcome by determination, by conclusion, by choice? Obviously not. So fear can never be overcome by any form of discipline. Mere suppression or substitution only creates resistance. And with resistance there is no understanding. When you resist anything, how can you understand it? Freedom from fear cannot be attained through mere intellectual or verbal explanation. We are afraid of a fact or an idea about a fact. Are we afraid of the thing as it is, or are we afraid of what we think it is? Are we afraid of the fact of death or the idea of death? Fact is one thing and the idea is another. When we conjure up in our minds an idea of death, because we do not know what it is, we become afraid. But if you knew the fact of death, there will be no fear, because it becomes a fact to you, and therefore you know. I'm afraid of the idea, not of the fact. When I am in complete communion with the fact, there is no fear. But as long as I only have an opinion, a theory about the fact, I'm not sure. So my doubt creates fear. How can there be fear of a fact when I am face to face with the fact, in direct communication with it? I can look at it, observe it, therefore there is no fear of the fact. What causes fear is my apprehension about the fact, what the fact might do or might be. Therefore, if I am not sure, then I have doubt about it, but I am sure. And how am I sure? By eliminating from my mind all the things that are hindering the expression of reality that is eternal. And when you find that silence and that peace that's beyond the comprehension of the mind, there is something that is beyond the mind that reveals itself to you. You will not know what it is, but you will know that it is. In that moment, you will know eternity. There can be no freedom from fear only when there is self-knowledge, for self-knowledge is the beginning of wisdom, which is the ending of fear. And he saith unto them, Why are you fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the wind and the sea, and there was a great calm. Matthew 8:20. Read through those lines and you will find the answer. Benedict. O ever-present, eternal being, when I speculated about life, I was afraid. But then, O eternal one, my fear disappeared when I knew I was life. I knew my living was from moment to moment in the ever-present, and the past died at that moment. This I know was death. Death was the end of the moment where life renewed itself eternally. O great one, I thank thee for revealing thyself to me. Then all fear disappeared. Now I know the meaning of the word, follow me, let the dead bury the dead. O mighty eternal Father,